Hello people and welcome to Africa's Craziest, where the unthinkable happens. On today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the top 10 most undemocratic countries in Africa. So sit back, relax and watch. Democracy is a system of governance that respects the separation of powers, fundamental freedoms like the freedom of thought, religion, expression, association and assembly, and the rule of law. So any government that does not abide to these principles loses its democratic legitimacy, regardless of whether elections are held after every 4, 5 or 7 years. Though there are several countries in Africa where the population enjoy a relatively good governance, millions still live under regimes described as authoritarian, oppressive and undemocratic. On the number 10 spot is Guinea Bissau. The Republic of Guinea Bissau, with a population of 1.6 million inhabitants, under the leadership of President José Mario Vaz, is the 10th most undemocratic country in Africa. Mr. Vaz's election was meant to draw a line under those events, but Guinea-Bissau has a record of military coup, and no elected leader has served a full term since independence 40 years ago. West Africa's Guinea-Bissau was part of the Portuguese Empire for centuries. Today, 14% of the population speaks Portuguese. Once hailed as a potential model for African development, the country is now one of the poorest countries in the world. The vital cashew nut crop provides a modest living for most Guinea-Bissau farmers, and it is the main source of foreign exchange. Today, the nation has a massive foreign debt and an economy that relies heavily on foreign aid. It has now become a transshipment point for Latin American drugs. At the end of the 1990s, the country experienced a conflict which drew in Guinea, Nigeria, Senegal and France that ended with the president going into exile. On the 9th spot is Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea, with a population of 1.2 million inhabitants under the fierce leadership of President Obiangema, who is at the same time Africa's longest serving president, is the 9th most undemocratic country in Africa, with human rights organizations describing the president as one of Africa's most brutal dictators. Equatorial Guinea is a small country on the west coast of Africa which struck oil in 1995 and which is now being cited as a textbook case of the resource curse or the paradox of plenty. It is made up of a mainland territory called Rio Muni and 5 islands including Bioko, where the capital Malabo is located. Since the mid-1990s, the former Spanish colony has become one of Sub-Sahara's biggest oil producers, but a large proportion of the population still lives in abject poverty. Human rights organizations have described the two post-independence leaders as amongst the worst abusers of human rights in Africa. Libya, with a population of 6.4 million inhabitants under no real leadership, is the 8th most undemocratic country in Africa. The toppling of long-term leader Muammar Gaddafi in 2011 led to a power vacuum and instability with no authority in full control. The country has splintered and since 2014 has been divided into competing political and military factions based in Tripoli and the east. Libya, a mostly desert oil-rich country with an ancient history, has more recently been known for the 42-year rule of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi and the chaos that followed his departure. Libya was under foreign rule for centuries until it gained independence in 1951. Soon after, oil was discovered and earned the country immense wealth. Colonel Gaddafi seized power in 1969 and ruled for 4 decades until he was toppled in 2011 following an armed rebellion assisted by Western military intervention. In recent years, the country has been a key springboard for migrants heading for Europe. Concerns have also been raised over the rise of Islamist militancy. At the 7th position is the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo, with a population of 81.5 million inhabitants under the leadership of President Felix Tshisekedi, is the 7th most undemocratic country in Africa. The recent history of the Democratic Republic of Congo has been one of civil war and corruption. The DRC is a vast country with immense economic resources and until recently has been at the center of what some observers call Africa's World War, with widespread civilian suffering the result. The war claimed up to 6 million lives, either as a direct result of fighting or because of disease and malnutrition. The war had an economic as well as political side. Fighting was fueled by the country's vast mineral wealth, with all sides taking advantage of the anarchy to plunder natural resources. On the 6th position is Chad. Chad, with a population of 11.8 million inhabitants under the leadership of President Idriss Deby, is the 6th most undemocratic African country. A largely semi-desert country, Chad is rich in gold and uranium and stands to benefit from its recently acquired status as an oil exporting state. Chad's post-independence history has been marked by instability and violence, stemming mostly from tension between the mainly Arab-Muslim north and the predominantly Christian and animist south. Chad became an oil-producing nation in 2003 with the completion of a $4 billion pipeline linking its oil fields to terminals on the Atlantic coast. However, it suffers from inadequate infrastructure and internal conflict. Poverty is rife, and health and social conditions compare unfavorably with those elsewhere in the region.